I, 29M, have always been close to my younger sister Emily, 26F. Growing up, we had the usual sibling arguments, but we've been tight since our teenage years, talk almost every day, and she's always been the person I trust the most. So when she met Mark 3 years ago, I was cautious, but supportive. Mark was charming. He had that slick, easy confidence that people either love or see right through. I tried to like him for Emily's sake, but there was always something that didn't sit right with me. He seemed too good at telling people what they wanted to hear, like every sentence was rehearsed. Emily, on the other hand, was smitten. She said he was the most attentive man she'd ever met, the first guy who really listened to her. They got engaged about 6 months ago. Emily was over the moon, sending me daily photos of venues, dresses, flowers, the works. I tried to be happy for her. I really did. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that Mark wasn't as perfect as he appeared. That feeling turned into something more concrete 2 weeks ago. I was out with some coworkers at a downtown bar after work. I was standing at the counter waiting for a drink when I heard a familiar laugh. I turned my head and there was Mark at a booth in the corner, leaning close to a woman who definitely wasn't Emily. It wasn't just a casual conversation. His arm was around her shoulder, and they were sharing a plate of food, laughing like they'd known each other forever. At one point, he brushed her hair back from her face in this intimate way that made my stomach turn. I froze for a second, trying to process it. Maybe it was innocent, maybe she was a friend. But then Mark leaned in and kissed her on the lips. Not a quick peck, but a slow, deliberate kiss. My hands were shaking so hard, I almost dropped my drink. I pulled out my phone and took a quick photo. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew what I saw. My first instinct was to storm over and confront him right there, but my rational brain told me not to cause a scene in public. I left without saying a word. The next day, I couldn't think about anything else. Should I tell Emily right away? Should I give Mark a chance to explain? Part of me worried she wouldn't believe me, that she'd think I was just trying to ruin her happiness. I'd seen friends get alienated from family after delivering bad news like this. That evening, I called Mark. I told him I'd seen him at the bar and asked who the woman was. His voice tightened. He must have been mistaken, he said, before hanging up on me. That confirmed everything I needed to know. After that phone call, I sat at my kitchen table for hours, staring at my phone. My stomach was in knots. If Mark was willing to lie so easily, then he wasn't just making a mistake, he was deliberately betraying Emily. I kept replaying the moment I saw them together. The way his hand lingered on that woman's back, the way he smiled at her like she was the only person in the room. It wasn't a fling. It looked like they'd been involved for a while. That night, I barely slept. By morning, I had made up my mind. Emily needed to know. She deserved the truth, even if it broke her heart. I sent her a text asking if she could stop by my place after work, saying I had something important to talk about. When she arrived, she was all smiles. Chatting about wedding dress fittings and how Mark's mom had offered to host the rehearsal dinner. It made my chest ache, knowing I was about to shatter that excitement. I said gently. We need to talk about Mark. Her smile faltered. What about him? I pulled out my phone and opened the photo I'd taken at the bar. I slid it across the table to her. She stared at it for a long time before speaking. Who? Who is she? That's what I was hoping you could tell me, I said softly. I saw them together 2 nights ago. They were acting like more than friends. Our face went pale. This doesn't make sense. He told me he was working late that night. I nodded. I called him yesterday to give him a chance to explain, but he denied everything and hung up on me. Emily covered her mouth with her hand, her eyes brimming with tears. I don't know what to think. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I wouldn't bring this to you unless I was sure.
Oh.
You know I'd never want to hurt you. She nodded slowly, her tears starting to spill over. I need to talk to him. Alone. I hesitated. Just be careful, okay? If he's willing to lie to you now, he might try to twist this around. That evening she called me, her voice trembling. I asked him about it. Said she's just a friend, that you must have misinterpreted what you saw. But when I asked why he didn't tell me he was meeting her, he got defensive and stormed out. I clenched my jaw. That's not the reaction of an innocent man, Em. I know, she whispered. but I need more than one photo before I make any decisions. Can you help me find out the truth?" At that moment, I realized this wasn't going to be as simple as telling her and walking away. I agreed to help her, even though I knew it would mean stepping into messy territory. I'm not a private investigator, but I also couldn't stand by and let Mark manipulate her. If he was cheating, we'd get undeniable proof. Over the next week, Emily acted like nothing had happened between them. She smiled, laughed, and continued wedding planning as usual. She told me she was keeping the peace until she knew for sure, which I understood, but watching her pretend around him made my skin crawl. I started casually asking around. One of my coworkers, Jess, mentioned she'd seen Mark in the same bar before, always with the same woman. That made my stomach drop. Jess didn't know her name, but she described her as tall, brunette, and always dressed sharply. Emily and I decided to set up a little stakeout. She gave me Mark's schedule, and I took an afternoon off work to keep an eye on him. Sure enough, 2 days later, I spotted him outside a coffee shop laughing with the same woman from the bar. They didn't act like friends. His hand lingered on her back when they walked inside. They sat across from each other, leaning in close, holding hands across the table. I took a short video this time. No one could claim I misinterpreted that. I sent the video to Emily. She didn't respond for nearly an hour. When she finally did, it was a short message. "Come over tonight." When I got to her apartment, she looked exhausted. "I confronted him again," she said. I showed him the video. At first he tried to say she's a colleague going through a hard time. But when I pressed him, he got angry, told me I'm paranoid, and that you're trying to break us up because you don't like him. That made my blood boil. Of course I don't like him. He's lying to you. This isn't paranoia. It's reality. She sank into the couch. "I believe you. Just can't believe he would do this. I was going to marry him, and now I feel like I don't even know who he is." I sat beside her. "Better to find out now than after the wedding." Emily nodded, wiping her eyes. "I need to end this. But I want to do it in a way that makes it clear why, so we can't twist it around to anyone else." She asked me to be there when she confronted him one final time. I agreed, knowing it could get ugly. That confrontation would be the breaking point, not just for their relationship, but for our family. Emily arranged for Mark to come over on Saturday afternoon, telling him they needed to finalize some guest list details. She didn't mention that I'd be there. I arrived early, and we set up the video on her phone, so the conversation would be recorded from the start. When Mark walked in, he looked relaxed, even gave me a fake smile. "Didn't know you'd be here," he said casually. "I'm here for moral support," I replied flatly. Emily wasted no time. "Mark, I need you to be honest with me. I know you've been seeing someone else," he scoffed. "Are we seriously doing this again?" "I told you she's a friend." Emily pulled out her phone and played the video from the coffee shop. The sound of their laughter and the sight of him holding that woman's hand filled the room. His jaw tightened. "That's not what it looks like," he said quickly. She was upset. I was comforting her by holding her hand and stroking her hair. Emily's voice cracked. "Mark, stop lying to me. Just admit it." His face darkened. "You've been poisoned by her," he pointed at me. "She's never liked me, and now she's making you paranoid so she can drive us apart." I leaned forward. "Mark, you don't get to make this about me. You've been caught twice. First the bar, now the coffee shop. How many more times do you think you can explain away?" He threw his hands up. "Fine, yes, I've been seeing someone else, but it's not serious. I still want to marry you, Emily." Emily stared at him in disbelief. "Not serious? You've been lying to me for months? Do you even hear yourself?" Mark stepped toward her, but I stood up, blocking his path. "We're done here. You need to leave." He looked at her one last time. "You're making a huge mistake. No one else will love you like I do." Emily's voice was steady now. "If this is love, I don't want it." Mark stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The moment it clicked shut, Emily collapsed onto the couch, tears streaming down her face. I sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "I'm so sorry, Em," I whispered. She shook her head. "Don't be. You saved me from marrying a liar. Just wish it didn't hurt so much." Over the next few days, the fallout began. Mark called her repeatedly, sometimes begging, sometimes angry. His parents even reached out, accusing Emily of overreacting. But Emily stood her ground, sending them the video as proof. Parents supported her, though they hated seeing the tension. And while Emily's heart was still raw, she told me she felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted. For me, it was bittersweet. I'd done the right thing, but in doing so, I'd burned a bridge that could never be rebuilt. It took months for Emily to truly feel like herself again. First, she avoided talking about Mark at all, as if saying his name might undo her progress. But slowly, she started laughing more, making plans, and focusing on herself instead of the mess he left behind. She threw herself into work and even picked up a pottery class she'd always wanted to try. I watched as she began reclaiming her independence piece by piece. Seeing her come back to life was worth every awkward family interaction and every angry text from Mark's side. One day, while we were out for coffee, she looked at me and said, "You know, I used to think telling me the truth would ruin everything, but you were right, it saved me." I smiled. It wasn't easy, but I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Her eyes softened. "You're the only one who had the courage to tell me when everyone else either didn't know or didn't want to get involved." I'll never forget that. The wedding venue deposit was lost, and she sold the dress online. She told me it was symbolic closing that chapter for good. She even donated some of the wedding decorations to another bride in need, saying she wanted something good to come from it all. Mark eventually stopped contacting her, though I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd tried the same behavior with someone else. I felt a flicker of satisfaction knowing Emily had escaped before it could get worse. Our relationship as sisters grew stronger than it had ever been. The trust between us was unshakable, now built on the knowledge that no matter how uncomfortable, we'd always tell each other the truth. If there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's that sometimes doing the right thing will make you the villain in someone else's story. But that doesn't make it wrong. And in the end, Emily wasn't the woman who got left at the altar. She was the woman who walked away before she ever had to stand there in the first place.